group number one, and on that question of how it made you feel, I think Freya, you had a really good articulation of your reaction to the images. If you're okay to share that.
Sure. I can't quite remember exactly what I said. It made me quite sorry. I can hear myself in the other room on someone else's thing because I'm on someone's Zoom. Yeah, it made me react quite emotionally to the fact that this kind of narrative really goes unchallenged in white climate spaces, in a way that's just really distressing and really deeply, just deeply colonial. And it really is like particularly the David Attenborough stuff, and this whole narrative around overpopulationist stuff. It's something that people feel very comfortable holding because it doesn't challenge their reality too much. And I can't remember what exactly I said, sorry.
No, that was great. Thank you, Freya.
That's what I remember. Yeah, it was that visceral reaction, like you say, especially to David Attenborough. I think you mentioned violence as well. These are violent images, and I think by the exclusion and by the narrative that they portray, I think that was a common thing that we all got from that.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share?
I'm just writing down things so we can have them for later.
Thanks, Melanie. Anybody up for sharing, or go on, Si, you want to go?
One more thing in the group, which when we were just getting cut off, I think Dawn, you were mentioning how people like David Attenborough and Chris Packham, what is the solution to how they dominate the narrative, and I think there was even a suggestion of are they aware of what they're doing and how they're colonizing the environment that the environment of thought on this, and I guess one of my thoughts on that is that they're very much rewarded. And I think that you see this happening in lots of arenas where people get to a position of authority on a subject, and they're almost, they're rewarded with book deals, with publicity, with articles, with everything else, and it's constantly being enforced that they are the experts, and so the burden becomes less on them to learn and to be humble and to step back, but more on them to kind of keep giving. And so I think it'd be very difficult for such figures to listen at that stage. And is how do we bypass them? How do we kind of intervene in their very dominant narratives?
Thanks. Anybody else?
Chaos, would you be willing to share some of your thoughts? They were really inspiring about the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Can do. Hi, everyone. My name is Chaos. It's nice to be here, and thank you for the space. So in the conversation that we were having with Anne-Marie and Jane, we talked about the fossil fuel industry, about some research, and the fact that sort of just the absolute violence of the people that have made billions. And when I say billions, I actually mean trillions of fossil fuels, and of the fact that our biosphere is now in a place where it physically cannot soak up the amount of carbon that is in the atmosphere, and the fact that their climate plans of how to deal with it is to make like huge swathes of land the size of Australia, bring them under colonial conservation, so they can say that they are protecting the pristine nature from local communities, saying that that's avoided emissions, so they can continue to emit. But then they're to customers saying that they are a green solution, basically. I think the point that I got to was the fact that fossil fuel companies are extracting in areas that and in territories where people that are racialized belong to. Like specifically, I gave the example of El Cerrejón in Colombia, and how the indigenous community there is, just facing starvation and drought because of how much extraction has been undertaken in their territories, obviously without their consent. And the last point, I think, was about the fact that fossil fuel companies have failed to uphold their responsibilities that they have to our planetary system and the responsibilities that they have for human life and for all life on this earth. But fundamentally, that means that we as people need to come together and take very seriously our responsibilities to each other. Because that's what the Guayú community did in El Cerrejón. They organized, and they've been organizing for decades. And through becoming responsible to each other and for each other and with each other, they've actually managed to shut it down. Not yet, but the OECD sort of said to Glencore and BHP, like, you guys really fuck this. So yeah.
Thank you, Chaos. Thanks for sharing.
I guess we're gonna have to move on.
Yeah.
But I would like to bring this back to like to the feelings. So I'm just gonna put down a couple of like things that I feel when I see certain aspects of violence, which is really, I feel frustrated, and a lot of anger. I'm really frustrated and angry, and it makes me question a lot of the figures of authority I have, which are not necessarily doing what they think that they're doing. So please hold those emotions which come and be aware that they are there, so we can come back to them to fuel and be accountable to our global families. So I think is it time for a break?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, this is a nice break slide. So please take yourself a 5-minute screen break if you can, and we will be back. Or give yourself a stretch, and we will be back at is it 6:55?
Sorry, let me just check. Yeah, 6:55. Yeah, so we've got just over 5 minutes.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're gonna invite Mama D to introduce what we're gonna do next, if they're able to.
She might not be back yet.
Oh, right.
Oh, she just disappeared completely.
Oh no.
She's back.
Let's give her a second.
Yeah.
minute or two to see if they can be back.
Simon and Sai's discussion about Greta Thunberg in the chat is really interesting. It's an interesting point. People just in the meantime, while we're Mama D, are you there? Might be, maybe her internet's not good enough.
Okay, I'm gonna give.
Oh, hey Mama D, can you hear us? You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, did you ask the question? I didn't hear.
Are you all right to introduce the next section? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sure. So, yes, can't you hear me? No?
I think there's just a slight lag, but we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, we've previously looked at and discussed the different kinds of rights and responsibilities in the kind of the general space in which climate care can take place. But how can we, after kind of acknowledging the kinds of emotions and feelings that we have when we looked at those clips and those images, what kinds of rights, personal and collective, and what kind of responsibilities, also personal and collective, help you or help your organization to be accountable to all of us? That is the global family, perhaps. So that's the question that we're asking you. How do those feelings, the emotions that were felt after looking at all those very contradictory and violent and untrue, palpably untrue
I think we've lost you, Mama D. Does anybody have any questions before we go?
promotions and advertisements and yeah, ways of thinking, how needed, yeah, be expressed.
Sorry, Mama D, we were getting a very jumpy.
Sorry, my internet's not very good. It's a crappy one. So what we'd like you to do in breakout rooms, do you want to, Caleb, do you want to just take over? I mean, you know what the instructions are for breakout rooms, yeah?
What, as in what to do in them? Yeah. So yeah, we're going to do a very similar thing to before, but I'm going to put you into random breakout rooms, and if you can try and respond to the question that Mamadi's just asked and the one that was on the screen a moment ago. Does anybody have any questions just before we go into the breakout rooms? Is everybody clear on the task? I will take your silence as a yes.
Just to kind of bring it to a more practical sense.
I will write
so,
the question I asked in the chat.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Just make a list, or perhaps if you want to work together to make a list of what are those rights and responsibilities that help you to move forward towards that global family accountability. And that is the exercise that we want. It's a preliminary list, but we're co-creating those rights and responsibilities which respond to the current crises that we're in.
And if you'd like to nominate someone who's going to be the one to feed that back in, we're going to kind of go around each group and get that feedback. Okay. we'll just wait for Mama D to put the question in the chat. Mama D, is the one in the plan? Oh, there we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, I'll copy that and I'll also send it to the groups, the breakout rooms. Okay.
This breakout rooms for 15 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you should see something on your screen about breakout rooms.
Harley, go into your breakout room. Don't worry, I know them, so it's fine. Where am I gonna go? God damn it, it's even now. I'm gonna go here. Bye.
Yeah.
Had.
What? Oh,
Are being recorded.
That with contrasting that with the kind of longer term on the ongoing struggles that have been and continue to go on around the world. And thirdly, a kind of related point is about kind of identifying where the struggles are happening. And Mamadi summarized this point quite nicely as the sort of control, power, authority that's being lost somewhere else around the world, relating that to the control, power, authority that's being lost where you are, where we are, where you live. It's kind of there's an interconnectedness to that. And in some cases, you sort of forget that this has actually happened in our own place, in things like enclosures and pushing people off the land. Okay, I'll stop.
Music to my ears, breakout room 1. Yeah, can I invite people from perhaps before we move on, because that's pretty tangible, really beautiful. Does anyone want to react from another space to what is being said? Either just like an emoji or
Yes, I would like to say something, because I listen to agreeing what he's saying. But this concept that it's white people, some people like Irish people, we were colonized. The Irish families were colonized first. So the communities who the indigenous groups, from those that have been conquered and turned into tourist resorts to those that are still being uprooted and having their resources taken and their lands destroyed. We have to stop the them and us, for whatever the them and us is. There's the oppressed and there's the oppressor, and that's what we've got to look through and unite. The oppressed have to unite against the oppressor. That's it. It's not black or white. It's not gay or straight. It's just we've oppressed and oppressor, and we've got to stand together, unite, and
thank you, Anne. I guess it's sort of like coming back to the concept that like race was invented to oppress, and whiteness comes back to this notion of how it was used to oppress, but with not just like, oh, just generalizing on white people, but it's a notion, a concept, just that. And it has behaviors. But yes, thank you so much for your contribution. That's very important to note. Just the constant struggles here in Europe. Sorry, the UK is no longer in Europe, but yeah, this land. Can Breakout Room 2 come in and support us with this right and responsibilities game?
So that was our group, and nobody was particularly fond of the idea of sharing. But if there is someone who would like to share, that would be really great. I could share a little bit, but I won't be able to type at the same time. But is there
I can help out.
Is there anyone from my group who might want to share? Okay, no worries. I can say a little bit. So we spoke a bit about the idea that the rights and responsibilities are kind of always changing, and that it's not a concrete kind of thing to what's the word, to like pin down, because you know it's always related to the new information that you have, and it kind of evolves, or that was what we were thinking. And Chaos said a little about something really interesting, which I'm going to try and paraphrase, but I might do it badly. So it was kind of about, Chaos, can you help me? I'm struggling to get it straight in my head. What you were saying about your experience with responsibility.
Yeah, I guess just I wanted to take the opportunity for this space for saying that some of the work about rights and responsibilities and being accountable to our global family in the group that I'm part of hasn't always been sort of straightforward, and that it takes work and that it takes time, even if our work is centered on solidarity. And then I reflected on the fact that a lot of the time, I think I grew up being told that I was a very responsible kid. And that made me feel there was an assumption in my head that responsibility is something that's imposed, and that it made me good because I'm responsible, I'm a good kid. But actually, I think I want to start thinking about it, that responsibility comes from within me and from like my heart, because that's what keeps me connected, rather than something that's sort of like imposed because this is how you're a good person. The other way.
Thanks. Yeah, we got a bit better. But one of the more concrete things we were saying, and I think Dawn was the one who said it, is that there's a responsibility to keep to create safe spaces, like when you invite oppressed members to your groups or organizations, there is a responsibility to make sure that they're not being re-traumatized by the space, or they're not being harmed by the space. So that was one concrete idea that we had. I think that might be everything, unless someone else wants to drop something in.
I would like to answer that Mama D's comment, in that she said to be black was to be rendered not human. Not all groups were in this way structurally dehumanized in a way that persists until today. Structuring of race is one critical part of colonial mythology. There were many methods that went on to produce modernity. Social classification was another method. I totally agree with the Aborigines were treated inhumanely. The North American Indians were, the Inuits, the animals, the Jewish people. It's man's inhumanity to man at all levels that needs to change. Not, you know, if we concentrate on any difference between us, I think that we'll fail to solve the problem, which is it's that oppression in the first place, that desire to take what more than one needs and to do it by force. You know. Anyway, I'm not. I hope I understand. Thank you.
I would say it's important to recognise there is a hierarchy of race, which, as Mel was saying, that's imposed on us, and we do have to acknowledge that at the bottom of the hierarchy is blackness, and I think that's what Mamadi is speaking to there. You know, with the transatlantic traffic and enslaved Africans, which is one of the most. It's a unique Holocaust and genocide in that never before had human beings been classed systematically as cattle, as chattel. And so, you know, this is where, you know, we still haven't fully repaired psyches, still haven't repaired lands, philosophy, culture, history around the damage that has been done. And so we do live under white supremacy, and we have to acknowledge that. I think this is something that's vital to learn about.
And this is still going on to billions and trillions of other things every moment of every day.
So please, people, within the space, we try to be mindful of how much time we take on, just because we want to encourage others who have not spoken to have space. So I ask Anne-Marie to step back for a second and we can hear from other people. Thank you so much for your contribution. So is that everything, Breakout Room 2?
Yeah, I think that's everything that
Awesome, thank you.
Remembered.
Can we hear from Breakout Room 3, please?
Who was that? Who's Breakout Room 3?
I'm not sure. There's one of the two final breakout rooms.
That was us. So Jane, I think you were taking notes if you were able to feedback.
Okay, yeah. So we felt it's really important to tell the truth when we were looking at all the greenwash that you get from the fossil fuel industry, and we were thinking about history lessons in school. Sai gave a lovely example of, is it all right to share, Sai, that example?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that his kids are still being taught about Christopher Columbus, when, you know, that's just and that Sai, I think you wrote to the school, but actually you had maybe the second time you wrote this with the second child, you did get quite a positive response from the school. Was that right? But it's still shocking to think that kids are still being taught that in history lessons, and not about colonialism and slavery and all of that. So we were saying how important it is to learn the truth and to share the truth, and also to learn from the past, but also to learn from sort of new young movements that are coming up. So I don't think I've put that very well, but if anyone just jump in, anyone else, I'll just really finish off really quickly, because we also felt it's very important to talk about things with others, and that we learn when we're talking, and a bit like Sai talked to these teachers in the school, and change happened. Without that discussion, that change wouldn't have happened. Okay, over to the rest of you. Add anything I've left out?
Yeah, yeah, that was most of it, I think. We did mention as well the responsibility to be uncomfortable, to not to not shy away from discussions with with family was important. So to move from where we are, we all have complex families, I'm sure, and so to do that intervention for ourselves, but also go wider and to challenge where we hear things are not in alignment with a global perspective and view. And what's the other thing? I think that was probably it. Can't think of anything else.
Anne-Marie? We missed anything?
No, I was just responding that Edward Coulson has been rightfully pulled down, but Oliver Cromwell still stands behind the steel bars of Westminster. I'd like to see him dragged down as well.
Oh yeah, actually, and on the learning from the youth movers, I think we mentioned how that intergenerational learning is key, because you know, there's some brilliant young youth-led movements that are full of energy and really dynamic, but also there's some disconnect between some of the activism that has taken place in previous generations, and when it's not built upon, or when it's not connected, there's a tendency to repeat the same mistakes, or to not build upon some of the gains that previous generations have made.
Thank you. You're saying how much we can learn now from young trans people. Yeah, that was one example, wasn't it?
Thank you for Breakout Room 3. That was really interesting. I feel like every Breakout Room is taking a different angle to the situation, and it's really beautiful to see how it comes together. Can I call on the last Breakout Room 4, to step in, please?
Yeah, I can, because I took some notes, but yeah, please everyone come in and tell me if I've missed stuff, because we spoke quite broadly, so I kind of highlighted some main points, but that's going to have my bias on it. So let me know. Yeah, we started talking about rights and then moving into responsibilities. So a couple rights that came up, which kind of ended up linking, was like, so right to food and safety, and then right to feel, for everyone to feel represented by climate justice activism. Because yeah, in order to move to create a new world, it needs to be for everyone. But the fact that the ability to do climate justice activism is a privilege, because not everyone, like food and safety isn't as accessible for everyone. And so if you're struggling for food or housing, like, how are you going to have time? Or if you're caring for elderly or sick or children, and how are you going to have time for climate justice activism? So a responsibility from that is to, like, basically a right to make sure that responsibility to be in community, and a responsibility to be better at communicating with different groups of people. And I think, yeah, speaks a bit to what Caleb was saying of creating safe spaces, and not causing more harm in doing that. And that's, yeah, a responsibility of all of us, and would be a responsibility to our global family. So yeah, I guess it centers around, yeah, because community means that we can care for children and the sick and elderly together in a safe space as community gardens for growing food, community living, so people are able to live and have space. Then yeah, we would have a more representative climate activism. And please jump in, Breakout Room 4, if I missed anything.
Perhaps Freya had something, but I don't forget what it was. I can't remember what it is. I reckon it's just trying to bring it back to, like, the importance of reflecting if our rights and responsibilities are accountable to the legacies of colonialism that continue to exist. And I think this is something which doesn't get discussed much in big organizations. So that's the main point. Do these rights and responsibilities account to the legacies of colonialism and harm, which the big corporations generally don't take into account? What was the thing I said? I think it was the right and the responsibility of engaging well with other people. I think that was nice. And I reckon I'm gonna pass it back to Caleb so that we can finish our session.
Thanks. Yeah, just to finish off the session, maybe in one breath, so we can keep it nice and short. Don't want to keep you here too much longer. We'll just go around, and each person, if you just think of one thing that you are kind of taking from the session and that you might do differently going forwards. So I'll just give you a moment to think about it. And yeah, you can see the question there on the screen. And then I might just start picking people so that we can get through quickly. Feel free to pass, because I know that we're kind of rushing this a little bit because we're running over. But yeah, do try and have a little think. If there's somebody who would like to go first, please make yourself known. That would be great, so I don't have to surprise someone. Otherwise, I might have to surprise someone. Oh, Freya's first. Go on, Freya. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things that this has really reminded me of in a really useful way is the like anger, like the really strong feelings of like, this is so obviously unjust and this is so obviously fucked up, and it's obviously like should be my responsibility and other white environmentalists' responsibility to remember this. And by remembering it, it's really important to regularly feel it. And I feel like quite a lot of the time I just numb out to it, and that stops me from holding myself to account. So I think trying to like remember to sit in those feelings more and feel more uncomfortable and feel more angry about it feels very important.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sure. Okay, now I'm going to start picking on people unless you keep putting your hands up. All right, I'm going to go with it on my screen to not be biased. So Simon, you're first, then Willow after that.
Thanks. My one takeaway, well, there's many takeaways. One takeaway to share with you now is I guess kind of rethinking inclusivity as a term and as a thing to do, because Mamadi really got me thinking when she said that as a term tends to mean sort of bringing people to you rather than going to them. So that's one thing I'm going to keep pondering. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. Willow, then we'll go to Melanie.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of already been said, but yeah, I think one thing is, yeah, sitting in that discomfort. I think with certain, like, I think Mama D asked something like, how do you cope with like the sort of like a consumerism thing or something? It was a question that just made me think like, man, yeah, I need it. It made me uncomfortable, and I need to sit with that and question that and process that, and yeah, sitting with uncomfortableness and not running away from it or shying from it, and really questioning it, getting to the bottom of it. Yeah. That.
Thanks, Willow. Yeah, there's no shame in saying what someone else has said, so keep sharing, everyone. All right, Melanie, then Dawn.
Well, I think for me, it's nurture more connection with my local community in a way that is more reciprocal, because I live in a neighborhood which is majorly like student-y, and I need to go and explore other areas of my like town, or so I can like get to know the different demographics of things and who is who, and just learn to be exposed to more different types of people more regularly in my day-to-day life, as opposed to like just when I'm doing climate activism, but actually embed that in my day-to-day life. So I'm gonna take that back.
Thanks, Mel. Dawn, then Jane.
I'm going to I'm going to say a couple, I think, because I think they're kind of interlinked. And one is definitely about the sitting with the discomfort, which I think I've been on a journey with that, but I still don't change my behavior within that. So I think it's like coming to that next step now. It's like, okay, so that's, I can do that, but then how I then overcome it more in order to be able to, I think, listen better and but also contribute better as well. And that's kind of part of the other thing. It's like just keep putting yourself in these kind of situations where you're learning, as opposed to, I think I found myself a lot of times more recently where I've been kind of leading discussion, and it doesn't feel, and that just feels a bit superficial. Actually, now I'm in this situation where actually what I'm really doing is I feel like a real beginner and I'm learning, and I just need to, I maybe keep that balance. Maybe that's it.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, that really echoes with me as well. Yeah, I'd just like to draw everyone's attention. Mama D has just said that she may be offering a deepening session on how to sit with those uncomfortable feelings. But yeah, so we'll go Jane, then Anne-Marie.
I just want to reflect more on where I think my responsibilities come from, whether it's sort of like internally created or something that's just like passed down to me.
Thanks, Jay. Sorry, I did say Jane, but no worries. Jane, then Anne-Marie.
Yeah, so just before starting this session, I was writing a talk about the climate crisis, and when I go back to it, I'm going to be using some of the ideas from this session, and especially the business about being accountable to our global family. So that, looking forward to doing that.
Thanks, Jane. Anne-Marie, Chaos.
I was very fortunate at 17 to be on oil tankers and shell tankers as a supernumerary. So I went to some beautiful places with lovely people wherever I went. We're a global family, and those who are on the front line now and having their habitat, their environment destroyed. I think everybody who's already had that done to them or can help in any way should stand together and try and save what is left of this planet and the people who are on it, the beautiful people who are all indigenous to their areas. And I'm as a white person, I'm very, very sorry for all the terrible things we've done, and still I'm learning new things and feeling, you know, we weren't educated at all. We've been fed a stupid story, and I'm so sorry for all the bad things that have happened. And you know, the only thing that we can do now, the only chance we've got to redeem ourselves is to all stand together and to save what is left and the people that are left and the creatures.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. See you later, Jay. Thanks for coming. Oh, it's gone already. Chaos, then Sai.
I live knowing, yeah, that my responsibilities are my way of being in the world, that they're not something imposed, but that they're part of who I am. Yeah, because they're part of my values. The responsibility to keep on learning and to be honest and to be humble. That is my responsibility. Thank you for this space.
Thank you, Chaos. Sai, then Meg.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but the idea of connecting to the earth and that responsibility of doing that, because yeah, I've been a bit out of touch recently. I know that now's the time to get your potatoes chitting and plant up onions and stuff, and I haven't been doing that, so I'm out of sync. And yeah, I've just been in the house, I think, suffering from Zoom fatigue and everything else. So that's always a really good reminder, and I'm going to do much more of that. But also in doing that, thinking globally as well, and connecting all these ideas.
Thanks, Sai. Meg, then Mamadi.
Thanks. And thanks everybody. I guess what Chaos just said really landed with me. And I think the thing about how Mamadi put in the chat earlier about rights affecting responsibilities and wanting to make a lot of time to challenge people that see responsibilities as a sacrifice rather than as an opportunity. If that makes sense. But yeah.
Thank you, Meg. Mamadi. Is she there?
Hi, I hope, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, I think my right and my responsibility coincide, and that's about slowing down. Yeah, what can I say? Slowing down, because slowing down enables myself, but it will enable all of us to be able to listen and feel the earth that we speak of so much. And it enables us to be to be able to have a response at that pace. So yes, I want to really embrace that slowing.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for sharing.
Just before everyone leaves, I know that people have other spaces where they're going to interact and talk about climate and this space. So I encourage you to read the 13th recommendation, which is in the website of the Racial Justice Network, which has been a collaborative narrative that centers climate justice, and it's a method of really embodying those rights and responsibilities. So I'm putting the link in the chat, which is important to be communicated because we need to resist the attempt to simplify the climate struggle to guilt, simplify the climate struggle to money or resources or do the right thing. But it is something that's been happening for centuries, is ideas that have been practiced for so many years before. But it is a pleasure to have you all. So thank you all for coming. And hopefully we'll see you soon in the next session in a month's time.
And if you would like to be part of planning any of the subsequent sessions, please get in touch because we'd love you to have your input.
Yeah, this is a space where we all co-create and collaborate with each other. It's not a place of experts. It's a place where we make beautiful spaces for everyone in a safe space. So just send me an email. I'm just typing down my email so people can reach out to me.
Is that all the notes? Yeah, cool. Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming. Have a nice evening. Take care. See you soon. Oh, has Mama D left?
No, she doesn't have good internet. And she might want to go home.
Yeah, maybe.
So good night then. Thank you.
Good night. See ya.